Thank you for listening to Buffalo What's Next on WBFO. Buffalo What's Next is on summer break and will return with new content shortly. As we take this break, please continue to tune in to WBFO Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. for producer picks of some of our favorite episodes of Buffalo What's Next.
How can we afford not to talk about race?
About education, about segregation, about humanity.
Since the dawn of this nation, racial violence has existed.
The way we have designed our society has a big hand in what occurred in that Tops Market.
The suburban area, everywhere. We must work and teach our children.
We need to make sure that we put more funding in our programs that help prevent gun violence and more money into art.
If we're going to have some real healing, we've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
On today's episode of Buffalo What's Next, Summertime Producer Picks, we highlight 3 segments from previous shows. Thomas O'Neill White speaks with Buffalo Fatherhood Initiative Program Manager Antoine Johnson from February 8th of this year. The two talk about ways to help fathers and families in Buffalo. Next, we continue with Thomas as he speaks with Northwest Bank's Jonathan Graves and Rick Hamister from February 6th of this year. And we end the show with Angelea Preston speaking with Yanava Hawkins and Rayna Moncreiff from Girl Gang Entertainment from April 19th of this year. First, Thomas O'Neill White with Fatherhood Initiative Program Manager Antoine Johnson from February 8th of this year.
This is Buffalo What's Next. I'm Thomas O'Neill White, and I'm talking fatherhood with Buffalo Fatherhood Initiative Program Manager Antoine Johnson. Antoine, thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
First off, being a parent is not easy. And once again, I'd like to apologize to my mom and dad for the 1,000th time. Antoine, you're a father. What does fatherhood mean to you?
Yeah, for me, I think the first word that comes to my mind is commitment. It is a day in and day out grind of being committed and involved. The other word that comes to my mind is presence. We talk about in our fatherhood groups this idea that you can be physically present but emotionally absent. And so one of my things is making sure I'm showing up, both physically and mentally.
Now, what does that look like? Being there more than physically, being present, mm-hmm. being there emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things for me is, just kind of getting in my kids' world. More so my daughter. I have 2 kids. My youngest is Nathan, who's 6 months, and my daughter, who's she'll be 3 next month. But just getting in her world, right? Whether that's playing with their toys or doing silly things. And I think, going back to your question, being there for me is about doing the things that my kids enjoy and the things that I believe will help to promote their growth and development.
And you are the program director for the Buffalo Fatherhood Initiative, which is part of Buffalo Prenatal and Perinatal Network. The Fatherhood Initiative is relatively new, and can you talk about its development since you've been there?
Yes. So I started late 2017. Our ED and fearless leader, Luann Brown, was the one who brought in the funding through through the Oshai Foundation, and she really just had a heart for and a desire to see more services for fathers and families because she didn't feel like that there was a lot of stuff out there for men with children, and she was right. I mean, there are not many father-specific programs in our region. In fact, the entire country, there is a scarcity of programs that we have, like the one we have.
What are some of your top priorities of the initiative?
Yeah, one of the biggest things for us is, one, making fathers feel valued. Many times I feel in our communities and society in general, fathers are often overlooked and undervalued in their role as a caregiver and a presence in the house more often than not. When I thought about the word father, I thought about breadwinner, provider, the one who brings in the bacon and not a whole lot else. Right. And so we really have done some work behind the scenes, so to speak, around changing the narrative where fathers are nurturers. They're not only providers, they care. We have fathers who they cry sometimes about their relationships with their children, especially when they don't have much of one for one reason or another. And so we really want to impress the fact that fathers are more than breadwinners.
Now, how since you started there, have those priorities morphed at all? Are there new priorities each year? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think the priorities have matured in a way. We've done other projects throughout the year. In fact, this year we partnered with Black Boys Free 2, their organization, and one of the things that we do is our fatherhood coordinator goes out and he sits with the children and their fathers and moms too at times in the barbershops, and they're working on literacy development. But one of the things I love to see is the fathers out there being engaged with their kids around literacy development, which is something that dads are doing every day. And I think what is happening is again we're helping to highlight the fact that fathers are engaged, and specifically fathers of color too.
How important is it to change the narrative of the absentee father and more so the absentee Black father?
Oh, it's imperative. There is this, like you said, stereotype narrative that Black fathers are not as involved as some of their other counterparts. And so I think that it is critically important to highlight two different things, right? One is the fact that this narrative is not new. I think in a lot of ways it's just carried over the decades. We think about, or I think about the Daniel Patrick Moynihan report back in the 1965, and where they talk about the number of out of wedlock births in African American families and how that contributed to a lot of the absenteeism when it comes to fathers, and why we see some of the delinquent behavior that we see with Black children and things of that nature. But I think one of the things that has not been highlighted is the fact that even if when fathers, Black fathers specifically, don't live in the household, being, we categorize them as non-residential fathers, that they're still involved. They're still doing what they need to do for their children, even if the relationship is not there with mom. In 2006 through 2010, CDC did a study, and one of the things that they found was that Black fathers compared to other races were actually more involved when it came to things related to direct care. So when we think about taking your kids to the school or bathing or mealtime, things of that nature, they're around, right, regardless of whether or not they live with their children.
Do you impart those numbers and those past attitudes about absentee fathers? Do you impart that on your group? You let them know this is what they think about you. This is how you got to move forward.
So we don't explicitly. I think that there is this shared awareness that is the narrative. We share statistics about when fathers are not involved, children are twice as likely to drop out of school, teens are 7 times more likely to become pregnant, families are 4 times more likely to experience poverty, because we want to emphasize their value and what they bring to the table when they are around, especially when they don't live in the household. But I think the other part of that, I think that's like a shared awareness.
We're going to take a short break in 4 minutes, but before this break, I want to ask, is there a mental health factor for fathers with newborn children? We talk a lot about postpartum depression in women, but is there a similar issue with dads?
Yes. So studies show that 1 out of 10, every 10 men will experience that sort of depression after the child is born. That's there. That's relevant.
What's the how do fathers get over that? What's the prognosis with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that there's one way. I think that a lot of men have opportunities for things related to therapy, support groups, family members, what have you. Just anecdotally, I think the biggest thing would probably just that closeness with their partner and having other people that they can share their thoughts with and so forth.
And talk to me a little bit about the annual report from 2022. Over 50 professionals were trained last year to engage and serve men and children. What kind of training goes into that, and what are the best practices for serving these fathers and children in the program?
Yeah, so that training was actually facilitated by one of our partners out of South Carolina who does work with fathers and fatherhood practitioners on a national level. And what he does is he talks about the just the reality of biases that are out there toward fathers when they go to various service providers, and how we as service providers or practitioners can be more intentional about helping fathers feel welcomed and giving them a voice when it matters. For example, when we're going to the doctor's appointments or the prenatal appointments with our partners, and the importance of them really just being present, right? I think about my own experiences where, sometimes I would go to the doctor with my wife, or at least when our children, when she was pregnant with our children, and sometimes they would only kind of look to my wife, for questions and things of that nature, and I would feel overlooked at times, right? And so it's those kind of things that it's important for folks through the different sectors to be aware of as it relates to fathers.
And you would say, just being present is like the starting block for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to show up.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with you on the other side. You are listening to Buffalo What's Next.
I'm Kraus Shalahorn with Mindful Music. Join me for thoughtful and in-depth conversation with my many different guests from around the region and the world as they discuss how music helps and heals in times of stress and everyday life. Listen to Mindful Music Saturdays at 4 p.m. right here on WBFO, your NPR station.
This is Buffalo What's Next, where we have conversations with the community about moving forward. To have your voice heard, press the Talk to Us button on the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions and comments on the air. Join us on Twitter at WBFO or email us at news@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
And we're back. I'm Thomas O'Neill White, and I'm talking Black fatherhood and fatherhood in general with Buffalo Fatherhood Initiative Program Manager Antoine Johnson. Antoine, talk to us a little bit about the impact the Fatherhood Initiative is having on the community.
Yeah, so I think for us, we are able to really highlight and raise the awareness about the important role and significance of fathers in the lives of families and children. I think that most folks who have that experience, their family is intact and not broken and so forth. It's just really natural, right? But I think for the larger community, that it's important for us to continue to help reshape that narrative around what a father really means.
Are you taking a holistic approach to this? Is that would you say you would do that?
Yes and no. So a lot of our work is done kind of just one part at a time. We do these groups through using the curriculum with the Nurturing Fathers program, which is evidence-based. And then what we do is we take the results and the testimonies and the transformation from the fathers whose lives have been changed to a degree, and we leverage that to help to really not only share their experiences, but also, again, do what I've mentioned before in terms of highlighting the importance of fathers in the community.
What are some of those testimonies?
Yeah, so more often than not, the fathers that go through our groups, they benefit from becoming better communicators in the lives of their children and their families. And so, they talk about how they experience less conflict with their partners and children, maybe not so much with their children, but they're better able to speak more in a nurturing tone, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're learning about the differences in terms of communication,
Is there anything that stands out for you when working with these new fathers or fathers who are trying to be more involved with their children or their family, what do they need to be successful fathers? Is it starting with presence, communication, what else?
Yeah, I think one of the things that the foundational piece is that fathers, men in general, we need to feel like we matter.
Right.
Like when we show up to the table, that there's a difference, right?
I think that's so important.
Absolutely. We're not better than mom, but our contributions are unique. When I speak to my daughter or need to correct her, apart from my wife, it resonates with her a little differently, and I'm not more effective than my wife. I just play a different role in her life.
Right. It's maybe like two sides of the same coin. But that coin is all love.
Right.
You've got 2 kids?
Yes,
right?
sir. Yep.
Given that and working with the group, what words of wisdom do you personally impart on the men that you work with?
Yeah. So,
do you ever pull guys aside and like, hey, you can speak to them anecdotally about things that you've gone through?
Yeah. So we have a team of 4 right now, which is really good compared to the one man show over like 2.5 years or so. We're appreciative of the growth and support from the community. But I think for me, when I'm talking to guys, one of the things is just being able to relate and empathize. I like to share my own experiences sometime around how I was raised in a broken family, so to speak, where my father wasn't as involved in my life. And so that experience and kind of overcoming some of the hurt and things related to that from my life, I'm able to confidently and again empathetically speak to the guys in terms of where they are. And not everyone has that experience. Again, I mentioned before how we have guys who have had fathers in their lives, but sometimes their experience is their father was present, but he might have been abusive, or he was present, but they didn't really feel loved by him, right? And so, again, there's the difference.
Did your experience growing up lead you here?
Yes. So I joined the organization Buffalo Prenatal in 2017, but it was just before that, I had gone through a program called the Fatherhood Connection. So it was brought in by a gentleman out of Rochester by the name of Reggie Cox. And I had to overcome something that I learned to be termed as a father's pain, right? I had a lot of resentment and things of that nature toward my father. And I was hurting. And so I had to overcome those things and resolve those feelings toward my father in order to effectively serve some of the men today.
Was it painful?
Oh, yeah.
Getting over that?
Oh, yeah. It's not easy being vulnerable as a man. I think more often than not in our culture, and we talk about Black fatherhood,
right.
There is this false narrative that Black men need to always be strong, never show vulnerability that can be seen as weakness because you'll be seen as like soft in the community, right? And so I had to get over all that stuff because the reality was I had to think about, those that will come after me, right? Like my children. Now I have a son who I have to help him understand that it's okay to be emotional and it's okay to show anger in a healthy and positive way when you need to let stuff out, right? And so I going through those experiences helped me to become a better father and a man for my community.
And I can see our producer, Charles, back there nodding along with what you're saying. He's a father, too. He understands. Can you talk a little bit about the 4th annual conference? When was that?
Yeah, so that one was back mid-October. And so those conferences are great ways for us to highlight some of the work that we've done and some of the things that we feel is relevant to the community around fathers and families. And so we were able to bring in folks from out of state and different things of that nature in order to do that work.
What was relevant? What were the relevant topics?
Yeah, one of the topics that really stood out, we had a speaker come from Louisville, and he talked about the importance of fathers, specifically Black fathers, around co-parenting relationships, and how, even when the two don't work out romantically, how important it is to be supportive of one another for the well-being of that child or children that are in the family.
As a child of a Black father from Louisville, got to agree with that. What else from the conference stood out to you?
Yeah, one of the things, so our theme for this past year was Hope Giver. And so that was all about the importance of recognizing that fathers need hope. And the way that we come to understand hope was that hope was defined as what we were able to do in the midst of adversity, right? What action were we able to take in order to get past that level of adversity and move forward? And so it was also fathers being able to give hope to their children, right? So now that if they have hope, they're able to give it to their family and their children.
What do you hope to give to your children?
That's a great question. I think for me it is to leave a legacy of nurturance, trust, faith, and commitment. Again, like I said, I grew up in a society would deem like a broken family, right? Not the traditional mom and dad relationship. And so I want that togetherness from my wife to be modeled before them so that they know when they get older, what a healthy, relatively healthy relationship looks like. And my wife and I are not perfect, but I hope that they're able to see that stability and love from us and pass it on.
When working in the Fatherhood Initiative, is there work being done like, partner to partner instead of as a side to partner or father and children? Is there like man and wife?
Yeah, so we have a segment in our Nurturing Fathers program where we have in the past brought in the partners or the wife in one of the sessions, and they kind of share their perspectives on their partner, right? So sometimes the guys like to pump themselves up and make them, it seem like it better than what it is, right? So the moms or the partners, they'll give the real opinion, and so that's always cool, and so that's what we've done.
We've got a few minutes left, and the last thing I wanted to ask you is, for our listeners listening today, maybe a struggling father or a guy struggling with his relationships, what's something you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Yes, so interestingly enough, I was listening to a gentleman that I have a lot of respect for. His name is Jason Wilson out of Detroit, and he said something that relates to our topic today, and it was for fathers to live from what you longed to receive from your dad, not what you never had, right? So I think a lot of times us as men, we usually will only impart what our experiences were. If we came from a broken family, then our bent is to create a family that is broken, right? But the idea here around that quote is to be what you didn't have, give what you wanted. If you wanted love or affection from your father, then give that to your child, what you longed for.
Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. Before we go, I want to send a shout out to my younger brother, Will, who is a father, and my sister-in-law, Vanessa, and their almost 1-year-old, turning 1 on Sunday. Little baby Francis, give a shout out to you. Happy birthday.
That was Thomas O'Neill White with Buffalo Fatherhood Initiative Program Manager Antoine Johnson from February 8th of this year. We continue with Thomas as he speaks with Northwest Bank's Jonathan Graves and Rick Hamister on some new home ownership and financial literacy programs from February 6th of this year.
Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for having us.
What does financial wellness mean, and what are some of the goals you associate with the term?
Financial wellness is making people comfortable with where their financial situation is. And that's whether they're saving for retirement, saving for college, saving for that first home. And one of the reasons that I wanted John Graves to be here is because he's such an expert in the first home buyer's mortgage situations.
And Jonathan, we've had this conversation before.
There's plenty of grants that are available in the Western New York area that really are used to help people with down payment, with closing costs, help you get into that first home. So at Northwest, we have our First Front Door program, which is a $5,000 grant that we offer that will be starting up in the spring, where it's a match program. We match you 4-to-1 on the dollar, so you're getting some assistance from Northwest as well. But we can always couple that with the municipal grants that are out there, the City of Buffalo grants. If you're looking in any of the suburbs, there's grants in Amherst and there's grants in Hamburg and Tonawanda. So there's a lot of assistance out there for first-time home buyers. Low down payment options, that's really what pushes first-time home buyers to that first home, that they don't have to come to closing with a ton of money. But every little bit helps. And as Rick was saying about financial wellness, that's where we always want to start, is with education and financial wellness to get individuals into that dream home.
If I'm looking to buy my first home and I walk into your office, what are you going to tell me off bat? I know nothing.
First, we're going to talk about the big word, credit, right? People either don't know where their credit stands, or some people do know where their credit stands. There's a lot of tools out there nowadays, the Credit Karmas, and even on your own credit cards, you can check your own credit or monitor your own credit, which is very important. That's always going to be the hot topic word when you walk into any lender. They're going to talk to you about your credit. They're going to talk to you about your credit, your income, and your savings. So, you want to make sure that you are prepared. One way to do that is to really take advantage of some of the home buyer education that's out there, whether it be from Belmont Neighborhood Housing or from anything that Northwest has to offer. There's plenty of areas around Western New York where you can find opportunities to gain knowledge on what you actually need to do to buy a house.
Now tell me about this collaboration you have with Belmont Housing Resources for Western New York. You guys are on Jefferson Avenue. Why the east side?
Years ago, when Northwest was acquiring the branches of First Niagara, had a meeting with the mayor, Mayor Brown, and he really wanted us to be in the east side. And we picked the area of Jefferson because just like they talk about food deserts in certain places, there really was a banking desert. And we wanted to be the catalyst of something special in that neighborhood. And I think we really were. Our branch opened in 2009. We also collaborated with Belmont Housing to put a full-service location financial education center. And that was really the start of a revitalization of that neighborhood. I mean, it's been a tragic situation in that neighborhood after the events of May 14th, but we'll be there. We were there before, and we will be there to continue to pick up, to try to help that community in a better financial position than they were.
What's an easy way or quick first step for someone to begin to resolve or improve their financial situation? Is that, Jonathan, as you said, that big C word, credit?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think education. I think education is probably the number one priority for anybody that's, whether it's purchasing a home or just getting your savings to where you need it to be, or just financial wellness in general. So walking into a branch, walking to that Jefferson branch, you're going to meet some great people that we have at Northwest. Our branch manager, Rodney Rodriguez, is great over there. They'll put you where you need to be and in touch with who you need to talk to, whether that be somebody at Belmont or somebody at Northwest that can assist you. So education, for sure, is number one.
And Thomas, nobody's situation is beyond hope. Everybody can get better, and everybody can improve. Just understanding the fundamentals of the things that go into their own financial picture. And everybody's financial picture is just a little bit different. Yours is different than Johnny's or mine. And everybody requires
a little bit of help. Well, that goes without saying.
Everybody requires a little bit of help.
You guys have suits on.
Yes. Well,
I've got Chuck Taylors.
We were meeting an important guy, so we had to put our suit on.
Thank you. Circling back to that conversation with the mayor, I mean, was there anything else interesting that he said that we need this bank here, but it was the why? Did he explain that?
Well, he really and I wasn't part of that meeting. I came in a little bit later, but from what I understand, he said that was the place that was most important to him, that was a part of town that really needed some financial help and needed somebody local so that the residents could get easy access to a financial institution. And I will tell you, Thomas, it's been remarkable to me how many new checking accounts that branch opens every year. They're in the top 10 for our entire Northwest Bank company, system-wide, in opening checking accounts every year. So that to me means that there is a real need for that in that community.
And how does that help the community grow?
Well, it's really the first step in financial wellness is just opening an account and putting money in and paying bills in a timely manner. I know you've got representatives from Belmont coming in a little bit, but that's really this first step towards financial wellness, and that I call it sleep at night. The ability to sleep at night, knowing your bills are paid and knowing that you've got a budget that you live within, and that you put more money aside every day for those dreams, whether it's sending your kid to college or buying that first home or fixing the home that you're in, with repairing a home that you might be in. And I know we've done an awful lot of lending in and around the Jefferson Avenue branch to help fix up some of the housing stock that's been around there and that needed some repairs, especially through a snowstorm that we just saw that has added even more pressure on some of these folks. But the ones that have been working with us, they got a little nest egg. They've got, with a loan and a grant, they can really fix things up well.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a new day in that neighborhood.
It is a new day in that neighborhood. At least I hope it is. They've been through an awful lot, as the whole city has. And I think I really, I hope and pray that we're really on the cusp of something special there.
No, as Rick was saying, that area needed partnership, and I think that's what that's what Northwest brought. That's what Belmont brings. That's what a lot of the residents in the East Buffalo have, or need, I guess, is that partnership, and we are glad to be part of that. And I think that it's only going to grow.
That was Thomas with Northwest Bank's Jonathan Graves and Rick Hamister from February 6th of this year. And we end the show with Angelea Preston with Yanava, Hawkins, and Rayna Moncreiff from Girl Gang Entertainment from April 19th of this year. The three discuss Girl Gang Entertainment and their work in the community for young girls of color.
Truth.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Buffalo What's Next. I'm Angelea Preston. And on today's show, we have two best friends that decided to start their own business together, educating the community about sex, mental health, and other issues typically not openly discussed in communities of color. Yanava Hawkins and Rayna Moncreiff are both born and raised in the Queen City and are here to talk about Girl Gang ENT. Welcome, ladies.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Yes. How are you?
We're good. Yeah. It's been a day. We just did a training. It's been a good Girl Gang day.
It's been a good Girl Gang day, yes.
Let's talk about Girl Gang ENT. What is it?
Yes. So how we typically introduce ourselves, we are an event planning and hosting company. We started off from college with an idea, and Yanava usually does a really good job telling why we started. So I'll let you say why we started.
So, I'll first start with this too, just like our background in terms of we pretty much have identical life stories almost. Like we started being friends and maybe when we were like 8 or 9 and went to the same high school, went to the same college. So then at the end of college, maybe like junior year, senior year of college, we're like, okay, we go to these parties, but it's always hosted by men and or the frats, and those are the parties that are the most booming. And we're like, we would love to go to a party that's hosted by women. And then I just feel like having the touch that women had, that we knew we could bring to an event space like that, and then have women DJs and photographers, videographers, that's where we really were like, okay, we should do this. So then our senior year, we were like, you know what? Whatever, we're just gonna throw a party. So we threw a graduation party the year we graduated. We were like, we don't even want our own graduation party. We're gonna throw one for our friends.
Others, yeah.
And when I say we had no money, We had no resources.
None.
We were just like, we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't even Girl Gang yet.
Yes.
For like, we were Girl Gang for like 2 months.
We were Girl Gang. We just weren't Girl Gang LLC.
Yeah. So we threw this party. It was fantastic. I mean, at that point, any profit was profit. But we were like, oh, we could do this. Mm-hmm. So that's really where we started in terms of like event planning. And honestly, I didn't really have an event planning background. Like Rayna and her family, they all do event stuff all the time. And I'm more of like the day of like hosty type of person. So we were like, we could do this. We just have to figure out what our like niche is, and we knew we wanted to support women, so that's where we came up with the Girl Gang situation, the Girl Gang name, and then you can.
And then we continued hosting our own events and planning events, and in 2018, I want to say, we joined a community action board with Hope Buffalo, and we basically created Pop and Play, the sexual health intervention. So it's a party, it's an intervention, it's there's a goal of actually getting Black young adults and young people tested and to decrease STIs in the Black community of Buffalo specifically. Mm-hmm. And we were hired through that community action board as event planners to also plan the event. Fast forward 2020, and we were asked to take it over because we had already been doing it. We created it, or we were part of creating it, and we're an event planning and hosting company. So that's where we're now, like, we own Pop and Play. It's our baby. Mm-hmm. To go back a little bit, the way it started was Hope Buffalo had grant funds from the Tuskegee experiment reparations, and they basically said, well, these funds are reparations from a horrific experiment that was done on Black people, so it needs to go to help Black people. And that's what we decided to create, was the event that is Pop and Play.
I looked on your website and I saw one of the videos for Pop and Play, and it's such a unique way to talk about sex, to talk about mental health. And it's a fun way, I feel like.
Yes.
So talk more about how that happens, like what goes on at a Pop and Play.
Got you. So first of all, I love Pop and Play so much. Like, it's just
so much fun.
Right. It's so much fun. And honestly, it's something that we never would have just like created ourselves. And so we're glad that we were part of the Community Action Board. And like while we were on the Community Action Board, we actually did it came with a lot of research, a lot of data. We did community cafes. We had to talk to other people in the community, say, like, why don't you get, like, straight up blunt questions. Like, why don't you get tested? You know, there's stigma around testing. Why is that? You know, what have you learned about sexuality from your family? Like, very in-depth conversations for us to even get to Pop and Play. Like, we didn't just sit at a table with 8 of us and be like, oh, let's do a party. No, we went into the community, asked, okay, you don't get tested because, you know, lack of access to transportation, or you don't know where to go, or the only place you can go is, I don't know, 30 minutes away. So you're just like, I'd rather just not even get tested. After gathering all that information, we were like, okay, so it's definitely something that needs to be not during the day. Right. Like during the day is just not a good to people at work, people at school, like that's not a time to get tested. So we're like, okay, bet, let's do it in the evening. And we're like, okay, if we do it in the evening, maybe we could just do a party. Like, why not? So we were like, okay, that might look a little funky, but like, let's, you know, dive deeper into it. So we were like, okay, cool, boom. We don't want to do like a health fair type situation. Let's make this an event where we can also decrease the stigma around getting tested, because I can be like, hey, I'm going to a party tonight. No one knows that there's going to be testing there. You're just going to have drinks and snacks or like whatever. To chill, to see your friends. So that took care of that part, to decrease the stigma. And then we always have free testing at all of our Pop and Play events. Shout out to Erie County Department of Health. They've been to every single Pop and Play.
Every single one.
They bring their kid, they're fun, they're part of the conversation, and then they provide free STI testing. We also always have a free condom bar. Again, we're not just having condoms in little packages or trying to hide them. We literally put them in chafing dishes the same way pasta or like pizza would be in. Like, we put them out on the table. Here's a bag. Do your thing. Get what you need. Yep. We've had sex toy tables before. And now we've brought in kind of a new element, which is a panel discussion. And that kind of branched out from COVID, where we couldn't have in-person events. So we did lives. And so we just brought in different people from Buffalo and then even outside of Buffalo. We just picked a topic and we talked about it. No, go ahead.
It's a safe space for people, for young teens and adults or whoever to come in and talk openly about sex and about mental health and about issues that, like you mentioned, are stigmatized specifically, especially in our community.
Right. And we like that it's not something where we have all, like, we get professionals or, I mean, yes, we like to have people in the space that maybe work at Planned Parenthood or maybe are in a sexual health or just health realm in general. But we really want it to be like learning from other people who are going through the situation, or somebody who's saying, yo, I felt this symptom and I ended up getting tested and I got this and this is what I did. Like, to hear that from somebody firsthand who might be a homie, who might be whoever, like somebody your age, like having that type of situation and circumstance in a safe space is like way better than us just having a doctor be like, you should get tested. Like, we know at this point that doesn't work. But to have a panel of young Black, I would say youth and all the way up to, I feel like we usually cap at like maybe 35, 36 age at this point. But I feel like between like 18 and 35-ish is what the room is full of. And to specifically have Black people in a space and talking about Black health, which is not funny, but we had somebody reach out to us on Facebook like, why is it Black sex? Like, what's the difference in Black sex and white sex, da-da-da. And we're like, well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but also when we talk about Black sex, we're not specifically talking about penetrative sex. Like, we're talking about there's health disparities specifically around Black sex in terms of pregnancy, women have STI rates are high. You know, there's not a lot of STI testing places in Black communities. Like, it's way more than just, this is my partner, we have sex and we're Black.
Black
like,
bodies are over-sexualized. Like, there's just so much more.
There's so much more layers than that. Yeah. So that's why our motto is protect your pleasure, because it's like, whatever your pleasure is, like, we don't care what that looks like. It's different for everybody. Whatever that is, we just want to make sure it's healthy. And we go beyond, we don't even really use safe sex. We always say healthy sex because that encompasses way more than just a condom. Like, that means you're in situations with people who are mentally stable in this situation, who have your best interest in this moment. Like, healthy sex goes way deeper than just having a contraceptive.
And you know, you both mentioned Erie County has been in each of the pop and plays. They did a study, or they released data last year about STDs in Erie County, and the 14211 and 14215 zip codes had the highest rates in the county for STDs, and both of those zip codes are on the east side. Talk about that.
So that is literally why we were asked to be part of the Community Action Board and to start this intervention and this event or create Pop and Play, because the rates are so high and were so high, and we needed to address that. Like, why is that? Why is that happening? What are the reasons? Like, is it education? Is it the resources? Is it the stigma just in general? We found it was all of those reasons. We could only really address like two with our event. So we focus mainly on education and stigma, which is why, for one, like Yanava said, it's a party. It's not a health fair. It's not like, you know, come talk to this this organization. No, it's no tabling. No one's passing out anything.
No flyers.
It's just fun. It's food. It's drinks. It's music. We always have a DJ. It's a turn up. And the only people we've actually allowed in the space that's an organization or a business is Erie County Department of Health. Because they take care of our testing, and honestly, they understand what we're doing. They're fun, and they always get into the conversation. I think at least once every Pop and Play, they'll say something.
What has been the response from the community, from people that have attended the Pop and Plays?
Love it.
Yeah, they love it. They definitely love it. And I also wanted to just add to what Rayna said, in particular about the zip codes, is that we are also very what's the word I'm looking for? Intentional on where we have Pop and Play, especially when we first started. We've had one at Varsity Theater on Bailey. Like, that was, I think, our third one. We had one at the Landmark. We had one like right after COVID. Well, it was still in COVID-ish, but we actually did one at the barbershop on Delavan in street
Styles
is.
of Man.
Styles of Man Barbershop.
Yeah.
So like we
is
will.
that Delavan and Cortland?
Yes.
Okay.
So we did a pop and play in there, had a DJ, had kind of everything we normally have. People were just walking down the street. I'm like, yo, if you want to get tested, we got free testing real quick. Like, we are not scared to be, not, I don't say scared, but we are very intentional about being in those spaces. Yes, now we have kind of grown a little bit, and maybe we are in spaces that aren't necessarily Black owned or not like in those specific zip codes, but I think now also our reach has grown. So people are like, okay, like I know who Pop and Play is, like I'll go to that place because based on who they are. And we've had a lot of people who have been to multiple Pop and Plays at this point. After every Pop and Play, there's always somebody who's like, oh, how can I get on the panel? And it's not some like, oh, we only choose these people because they have followers, or we choose people because I know they did that. No, it's like if you have something to say, you feel like you can be on this panel and use this platform to then educate the community, even though you're not a health educator, quote unquote, your experiences will educate somebody in this room. We're like, of course, like, yes, you can be on this panel. So I think the feedback that we've gotten has been tremendous, both in person and with our online, like Facebook Lives that we do. The feedback has definitely been positive.
How often do the Pop and Plays happen?
So the Pop and Play event, like the in-person event, is only once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And then we do the Facebook Live panel every third Thursday of every month.
Yeah.
If it's not a Pop and Play.
If it's not a Pop and Play
right,
event.
that month.
Right. And we'll also add that all Pop and Plays are free. So free of charge. You don't pay for anything. They always come with food, drinks, you name it. Whatever is available to everybody when they walk in. No one opens a wallet when they come to Pop and Play. And that will always be always.
Yes.
Growing up, for you ladies, growing up in Buffalo, how was your individual experiences regarding sex education and regarding mental health?
So we joke about it all the time, but our health class was terrible.
It was not it.
It was
I
some
couldn't tell you
multiple
one thing I
choice
learned. Yeah.
questions. And the most monotone teacher.
Right. It was
Love
not
him,
good.
but it was rough.
It was not good.
It was not.
Yeah, no. I learned most of what I've learned from talking to friends, internet.
And the trainings we got at Hope Buffalo.
Right. Like I learned the most during this process. Like prepping for Pop and Play. And then that puts you in an even different space because now like friends will ask me stuff because they know that I've learned things being through that time, and like I feel like I'm kind of like a champion in the community at this point where people can be like, yo, like where can I go get tested, or they'll just DM me like, yo. And I like knowing that we've built up enough like information on ourselves because I wouldn't necessarily consider myself like a sexual health educator, but like knowing we can be like a bridge,
resource
that can gap
a
bridge. Does that make sense?
Close the gap
Between the community and like any of the resources that we know. Like that's really what I think feels good at this point, especially when we didn't have it in high school
at all.
Yeah, that was not existent.
No.
Yeah, no, they're just like safe sex. We're like, okay,
appreciate it.
Like
next,
right? Like, all right, okay, let's go play basketball. Like, okay,
yep,
that meant a lot. Appreciate it.
Let's talk about. I saw on your website, it's the choices for me.
Yes.
Talk about that initiative.
So again, shout out to Hope Buffalo.
Yes, Hope Buffalo, our peeps.
Right. No, that's the home. Speaking of homies, that's
right.
The homies.
Those are the homies.
So once we were in the loop with Hope Buffalo, from like being on the community action board, building Pop and Play, we were well connected with Hope Buffalo. So they were looking for someone to contract to implement a sexual health intervention for teen girls ages 14 through 19. It started out with specific zip codes, but we were able to just narrow that down to just girls who live in Buffalo. So pretty much it's a program that's already created. It's a video called 17 Days. But honestly, like pitching that to a school, just being like, here's a video called 17 Days, can we come? It's not sexy. So we were like, okay, how can we put a spin on this and like make it a little bit more fun? So we decided to call it It's the Choices for Me. And it comes, every girl who watches the video gets paid for their time because we're like, you had to sit here for an hour and we appreciate your time, so you get paid for being here. And so yeah, we pretty much have gone to schools, after school programs, sports practices, whatever we can get to, and we have them watch the video. We do a little recap at the end, do a little condom demonstration. I think the most important part is at the end we ask questions, or we have them ask us questions and just let them know that Girl Gang is a resource. I'm like, we're girls. We know what it's like to be a high school girl. Things happen. And, like, health teachers aren't necessarily saying that or coming from that viewpoint. We're like, we know things happen. Condoms break. you might be in the moment. You might have raw sex that you didn't necessarily plan to have, but it happened.
Yeah.
And so, like, instead of being like, well, what do I do? DM Girl Gang, hey, this happened. Where can I go? Like, so having that connection with the 300 girls that we reached this year, I think is definitely, is definitely powerful. And honestly, if you would have asked us in 2017 if what we would be doing in 2023, it would not be
have said
doing
this,
a sexual health
but
intervention for girls. But
we love it. I mean, the program, it was created by Carnegie Mellon. So they had already like tested this and they already knew that it was proven effective. The video is healthy relationships, but specifically they learn how to do condom negotiation. Like if they're in a situation and maybe, you know, the other person wants to take it to the next level, they're not really sure if they want to, or they are comfortable with it, but they know for sure we need to have a condom. How do you say that? Do you ask, do you have a condom? Do you say, I have a condom?
Right.
They learn that they have options. They have the ability, you can say that you have a condom. You can carry condoms. That is okay. If you know that you're going to engage in sexual activity, you should protect yourself.
Right.
And so the video is supposed to show them how to be in healthy relationships, how to negotiate that. The main character, I think her whole story is that she has a boyfriend and they had sex. She didn't have a condom. And so she was just in a sticky moment of like not knowing what was next. She didn't know, like, am I going to be pregnant?
Right.
Like, what's happening with my body?
Right.
And the entire story goes on from there to like talk about how that could have been prevented and more tools. They learn how to make an OBGYN or a GYN appointment. Gynecologist appointment. They learn how to put a condom on. So it's a really good video.
You mentioned the condom demonstrations.
Yes.
Do you ladies find when you do those, is there the awkwardness from the girls? Like how do they respond to that?
Funny enough, being the people that Rayna and I are, I really don't feel like there's like that awkwardness that you probably would have with your health teacher who's some like 50-year-old man.
No.
So like by that point, like first of all, we walk in and we just look like one of the students low key.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, the way we talk, the way we hold ourselves, like they'll be chatting and we'll be like, yo, can y'all chill real quick? And they're like, oh, they kind of cool. Right. So by the time we're like, all right, y'all, what's this? And they're like, oh, it's a condom. We're like, okay, bet, open it up. So by then, like usually the awkwardness, and that's what I'm saying, the ending is very nice because usually by then all the barriers are broken down and they feel very open to be like some people come up to us afterwards like, hey, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure. And they'll ask like very personal questions, and like the fact that we can get to that point within an hour of knowing them is like, this is all a one-day setting situation. It's not two parts. We see them one time, and usually by the end they are able to ask us questions that they either don't want to or are comfortable asking their friends or family or their nurse or anything like that. So having that, I think, is not the most important, but that's one of the most important parts.
Yeah.
How often do the It's the Choices for Me events happen?
It's very dependent on schools, who says yes, who says no.
Right.
To be honest, this is our third year doing it. The first 2 years, I don't know if I say rocky, but it was hard coming off of COVID, and it was difficult to get our foot in the door. So like, receiving an email from Girl Gang Entertainment off rip is just kind of like, who are these people? Like, who is this? And then we're like, hey, sexual health, and they're like, all right, this sounds like something we don't need.
Right.
So once we pass that part and they see who we are and they understand we're affiliated with Hope Buffalo, like usually then people are more open to having us come to their school. And so this year was our first year where we felt like we got into some schools and then that teacher told another teacher and that teacher told another teacher from a different school. So like social workers, gym teachers. So like we just had performing arts literally for the whole month of April. We went every Friday for gym classes. So that came from us going to Kenmore West, and then that came from us going to another after school program. So I feel like between maybe like December to April, we were at least at a school once a month.
Busy.
Yeah.
Yes. And in true Girl Gang fashion, we did create an event off of this intervention that we provide. So that's called Healthy Girl events. It depends on what's happening. Sometimes we'll do Healthy Girl Halloween or Healthy Girl Summer.
Yeah.
And we'll just do events or we'll do activities that go with the time of year or whatever is happening. For Halloween, we had Sydney Moore come out and do extreme hip hop with Sydney. She just did a quick class with the girls with her steps. We had Jumani come out and do some kickboxing moves with the girls.
Yeah.
We had a nice, display of drinks and hot cider and
Food
a
truck.
DJ.
Yeah, like a block party
sounds
vibe.
Oh, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Just promoting healthiness. Like, that's, like, at the base of it. Like, that's what we want it to be. And just good vibes, chill.
Yeah, we had organizations come out. They gave out candy and
was
other
nice.
free things. I mean, was it Planned Parenthood? They were going out, like, full bags.
Yeah.
Like gym bags.
Yeah, that was nice.
Filled. Yeah.
Wow.
It was really nice.
It was really nice.
You mentioned that when you started the business, you had no money.
Zero.
Zero.
Negative dollars.
Bank account negative.
Negative.
Overdraft fees.
Yes. Big overdraft.
How difficult, or talk to us about being young Black women navigating ownership.
So there were a lot of groups that we joined. The Kenesha's Women's Business Center was a big help. We participated in their growth program, which they have for women entrepreneurs and businesses that are basically at the point that we were at. We started, but we were just trying to like really get our footing and like marketing and just all of the small details that didn't have to do with us actually just doing our work.
Yeah.
But it was very helpful. Shout out to Kenesha's Women's Business Center. Our friends and resources, like we've had a lot of people mentor us and assist us. One of the ladies at Hope Buffalo used to be an event planner, and she kind of took us under her wing and, would help us. She mentored us. We worked with the SBA as well and got a mentor through them. So a lot of mentoring.
Yeah.
Like just us listening and taking everything in. Like we're definitely sponges. We love to hear new information and just be educated on like best practices. I'm always like looking at the SBA to see like what different tutorials or what conferences they have or just like little classes that I can sit and watch and like get information about. So that's been our biggest thing, is just looking for business resources.
What's next for Girl Gang?
Oh, girl. You got that right?
So we are in the process right now with Hope Buffalo of moving forward with 17 days ideally. So we're looking to continue that intervention, and whether or not it's specifically 17 days or another video, another program, it's the choices for me is what we're looking to continue at the very moment.
Yeah.
And then possibly, maybe some moving out of Buffalo for Pop and Play, but we'll see.
Yeah. We definitely want to take Pop and Play to another state.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
For sure. Another city.
Or maybe even another country.
Right.
Like Canada.
Right.
Yes.
No, honestly, because like the concept is there. Like we know that is done. Like there's no changing that. Like we know the goal is to decrease STIs, to get more people tested, and to reduce stigma.
Right.
And we're like, we already have this package. We can literally be like, okay, bet this is what we do. We find the Erie County Department of Health equivalent to wherever we're going. Boom, they're there, do free testing. We find a dope little bar. There's Pop and Play.
And we've had so many people reach out to us to be on the live from outside of New York. We've had people from California, people from Atlanta, DC. Like people are always reaching out to us because they've seen it, they watched a live, they've seen our social media or something. And so we know that the interest is there. We just have to do it. So
yeah,
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We're there.
So ladies, how can our audience or anyone listening, if they want to know more information about Girl Gang ENT, about the Pop and Plays, what is the best way for them to access the information?
So they can visit our website at girlgangent.com. And then if you're on social, our Instagram is girlgangent. And then for Pop and Play, our Instagram is popnplay716. So it's POPNPLAY 716.
And that will do it for today's Summertime Producer Pick episode. We would like to thank our guests, Antoine Johnson, Jonathan Graves, Rick Hamister, Yanava Hawkins, and Rayna Moncreiff. If you missed this and you'd like to hear it again, a reminder that this program is a podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts or the new Amplify BTPM app. And each episode is available online on demand at WBFO.org. This is WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOL in Olean, and WBJ Jamestown, your NPR station. This is Charles Gilbert. Thanks for listening.